The Penguin. This is a spinoff of Matt Reeves' The Batman film that came out in March of 2022. And we've been hearing about this show pretty much since the release of that movie. Obviously, we know that film was really, really successful, establishing Robert Pattinson as our brand new Batman in a standalone universe, not tied to anything that they're doing with James Gunn's future DC universe. But they also wanted to build out this world and build out more characters from this particular universe. And so we first heard about the Penguin show really around 2021, even before the release of the Batman. We knew that the Penguin was going to be included in that film, but HBO, they were in early development on a series of spin-off television shows. And so the Penguin was going to be one of those spin-off television shows. Matt Reeves initially wanted to make it a movie, but then executives said, like, no, let's do a show instead. And they were also developing some other shows. They were going to make a Gotham City Police Department spin-off television series, but ultimately that got canceled. And they were also developing something focused on Arkham Asylum, and I think that also got axed at this point. And so they've really reduced down their focus on Batman spinoff properties, but the Penguin is now out. Before we dive into our thoughts here, similar to what we just did with Agatha All Along, what were your thoughts about the Penguin getting his own spinoff television series, considering that this is mostly just been a Batman villain, not necessarily having its own solo sort of standalone stories, and now we're in this phase, we're in this era where supervillains are now getting their own stories told in addition to the heroes. They're not just playing the foils. Now we're sort of unpacking and exploring their backgrounds. What did you think of the idea of taking Colin Farrell out of that movie and giving him an 8-episode series that was going to run on HBO?
Batman, I mean, you can make the argument all day, right? But a lot of people believe that Batman may have the best rogues gallery there is. But what makes the rogues gallery so good, I think, is Batman characters usually are more developed than a lot of other villains. They have ideas and concepts about them that make us go, huh, that's a very interesting person, actually. How do they operate? Why are they like this? And after Matt Reeves makes 2022's The Batman, he created a world that was almost even darker than what we've seen from Christopher Nolan. It's a pretty dark, I think, world we're in. But not only that, it's very grounded. And after seeing Colin Farrell in The Batman, I was like, wait, this can be about Oz, right? Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin. But also, this is like a street level, grounded kind of gangster story that we can kind of go through and kind of develop and be interested in if done correctly with the accent of Gotham City that we know and love and have been accustomed to. And I thought that was a great idea and genius idea. Again, after seeing The Batman, I still don't believe Colin Farrell's in the suit. I can't believe, that is really him. But I think that idea and that concept, again, after seeing the world that Matt Reeves built with everything that I said, made a ton of sense. There was nothing that was that gave me pause, like, maybe they shouldn't do that, except for one of your points is just that the movie, the TV show pipeline is like, oh, I don't know about this thing. But other than that, man, I think they had all the pieces for this thing to kind of come together and for it to make sense as its own standalone story. Oz was an interesting character in the Batman, and I think they can make him an interesting character too in an 8-episode series.
It's also I think it's all about as well, just like the intention and the place that we're coming from with these things as well, right? Because with the Batman, the film, Matt Reeves and what he's trying to achieve there is a completely grounded, realistic interpretation of that character and of that world. I don't anticipate, I could be wrong, but I don't anticipate we'll see Mr. Freeze in Matt Reeves' The Batman world. I could be very wrong about that, actually, because there's a lot of rumors that might be the case. I would love to
see Mr. Freeze.
But it would be tough to crack that in a grounded, realistic way. But maybe they have a way in that. But it just doesn't feel like that we're going to lean into the really fantastical stuff like Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins and the pool of life, whatever that brings people back to life. This is going to be something that's very much rooted in crime, drama, noir, mystery elements, and a lot of that film was that. And so taking a character like Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, who is very much just a crime underlord, a boss of Gotham, a gangster, it's like, okay, yeah, there's stuff that can definitely be mined there to tell us really compelling story that not only ties in with just the brand of what they already established with that film, but kind of ties into just like the history and the lineage of HBO as a brand, like these pairings of what we're trying to do here. Like, oh yeah, let's make a Gotham version of a Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire style
Exactly.
series, and initially Terrence Winter was going to work on the GCPD spinoff, but they're not moving forward with that. But that idea and that concept, it's like, okay, I can go there with you. I can see how we can take that and do more there. And because we are in this era of supervillains, anti-heroes getting their own spin-off films and series, this is now becoming par for the course, where we are examining deeper into the mythos and the backstory of why these people are the way that they are, or witnessing their rise to power, essentially, because this series is focusing on younger Oswald Cobblepot before he's able to take over Gotham City and become sort of the crime boss that we know him to be, largely in the comics and other media. And so I think it's a smart choice, and it's also good too, just considering, like, we know Matt Reeves. He takes his time making these movies. Like, he
He
he doesn't
does.
rush at all, and so it's going to be like another 2 years before we get the next Batman film. And so this is kind of a nice holdover to just have for this particular world, to say, like, oh, let's go back to that Gotham for a bit here and experience a different character. We won't get Batman, but we can still go back to that world and hold us over until we do get that sequel. And so, yeah, I was looking forward to it for sure. But with all of that out the way, let's dive into it. Before we talk about spoilers and get into the nitty gritty details of this premiere episode, let's just talk about general big picture thoughts. What were your overall thoughts about the series premiere of this brand new DC Studios series, The Penguin?
I think episode one was really good. This is exactly what you want a pilot to be. You want your titular character to be, I think, interesting, even though we had already been introduced to him in the Batman movie. Here they do something almost like a different kind of reintroduction to, like, no, y'all, this is the Penguin. This is who he is. This is how he acts. This is where he stands within the world that he's been created. And by the end of it, you say, oh, this is where he's trying to go. That's a pilot. You know exactly where you want to go with the next episode, if not the rest of the season. You get a lot of your main players and characters in this first episode. uh One of the things I was worried about, I think you might have been worried about this too, was like the budget and how the hell we're gonna go from the Batman and how amazing that TV show looked to what this TV show is going to be on HBO Max. I had no worries there. I was like, nope, it looks pretty good. It feels like the Gotham that they had built. And yeah, and I think they did a good job at that. Oz, it's so weird to feel like I should be rooting for a villain, but I guess it makes sense, right? I guess, like, the way they build it up and the way they have it, it's like, no, we're rooting for this person we probably shouldn't be rooting for, but the circumstances he's going up against, is like, I want you to do good here. I know you're not the best person, but I want you to do good here. And I think that's impressive anytime you can get people to buy into that idea, because it makes you want to keep watching. You're both rooting for him, and he's not the best person. It's the anti-hero formula, is what we've built up in all those good anti-hero characters in TV shows. So I think it's a very good pilot. I don't have any complaints right now. I love that we're using Sophia Falcone. We're doing good. I think I liked everything they touched. So yeah, man, I think they did a very good job with this pilot episode.
I enjoyed everything that I saw in this opening premiere of The Penguin. I think that they kept the focus small. They keep it tight. We focus on just a number of characters. We focus on really what the thread that ties this all together in the rise of power of Oswald Cobblepot in a very broken down Gotham after the events of the Batman. It immediately throws you back into that world, a very familiar time period. It just hits the ground running. It subverts expectations within the opening 10 minutes, and I found that to be a pleasant surprise. There's violence, there's F-bombs, there's blood, there's all sorts of stuff. This is a very mature show. This is not pulling punches.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I wanted, especially considering that we don't have any restrictions of network TV. It's on HBO, it's on Max. They can do whatever they want, and they can just kind of go there and give us a more mature take and interpretation of this character and of this world and of this Gotham. And we just haven't gotten that. The Gotham television series that was on Fox a number of years ago, it had its ups and downs. There were things I liked about it, a lot that I didn't like about it, but they just couldn't go there, for a Gotham show about
Yeah.
corruption and the police department and crime and the low level stuff that happens on the street. Well, it's like, yeah, people are probably using drugs. There's probably stripping and
Mm-hmm.
prostitution and muggings. Like, that's not pretty stuff. You can't you can't pull punches with that, and they often had to on that show because it was on Fox. Now we don't have to pull any punches on that stuff. Like, we're just diving in, and we're really leaning in again to the idea that this is a mature HBO show about a crime boss, about a gangster who just so happens to be a DC character, who just so happens to be a
Right.
supervillain. And I think
Mhm.
that because they're taking that approach, we're going to be in store for something that's really, really valuable and rewarding here. So I'm excited to see how this unfolds over the course of the next few weeks. But let's talk spoilers and get into the details of this premiere episode, which is entitled After Hours. So if you've not checked out the premiere of The Penguin on Max or HBO, definitely go watch it and come back and finish out the rest of our conversation. I just want to start on Gotham itself.
Mhm.
You alluded to it. Matt Reeves' imagining of Gotham in that film
Yeah.
was so fully realized and so well done and so clear. I think it's quite possibly, and I said this 2 years ago when we talked about it, it might be the best realized version of Gotham that we've gotten in any other media outside of the comics. And that was one thing that I was very curious to see how they were going to translate that into this television show, just because it will be a smaller budget, right? And so
Mhm.
I did notice, there weren't as many wide sweeping shots, in this
Right.
episode. You can't do that all the time because you just, that's a
Mhm.
lot of money to render those shots. But it felt like they did a pretty good job at bringing us back to what already felt familiar, what was already established a couple of years ago. How did you feel about just returning to Gotham and the way that they sort of brought to life that world, especially in this opening episode where most of it takes place in the daytime, which was not the case
Mhm.
in the original Batman movie. A lot of that was at night in the rain, but now we're seeing Gotham in the daytime, which is a completely different experience entirely.
Thinking about just like superhero comic book history, Gotham may be one of the most important characters in terms of setting out of any of those things, right? Like Spider-Man has New York, but that's a real place. You know what I'm saying? Or like everybody has these cities. Metropolis is like, do we really care? Like, is Metropolis really like that big of a character? Gotham is a real character that like you need to understand and realize why Batman is the way he is in Gotham. And again, he did such a good job. Matt Reeves did such a good job of capturing that. Now we're hearing the Penguin like, okay, can you continue to feel like Gotham is a character? And he very much does that in so many ways. Like even shoot in the first, it's the Batman also 2022 is one of my favorite Batman openings. It's just a monologue showing you the different parts of Gotham. It's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what Gotham is. I know exactly where I am, and because it is such a hodgepodge between Chicago, New York, and London, and places like that, it's like, oh man, I feel or have an idea of remnant of where I am, and I think the Penguin definitely does a good job of doing those things. And it's not only through, I think, even seeing the city either. Sometimes it's like the small things, like the way Oz's office looks in the what's it called? Not the Iceberg Lounge. What's the name of the club? It's the ice something cold.
Oh, it is
Uh
Iceberg, I think.
it
Yeah.
is Iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Iceberg Lounge or something like that. Even the way that club feels is like, no, this feels like Gotham to me. Like I know exactly where I am. There's always a window behind them. You can always see like different buildings and things behind it. It's like, no, yeah, y'all did a good job of what this is supposed to feel like. Not only that, but a lot of it is color grading in the Penguin too. There was a couple shots I was like, oh, that looks like that's the exact dark yellowy tone that I know from the Batman. Good job of establishing that feel again to make me feel like this is Gotham. So yeah, it's again, between all the other superhero shows, Gotham is such an interesting but more important character to what this universe is supposed to be. You almost have to get it right, or else it's not going to work as well. And I'm glad they got it right.
One of the things that I wholeheartedly believe is the best Batman stories are when you can involve all of Gotham's institutions, from the political to the societal, the underworld, the
Mm-hmm.
middleman, all of these different avenues in which make Gotham feel like a real breathing, living place. That is one of the strengths of Gotham as just a consistent character that's been present throughout Batman media is that we know the political figures. They return throughout all of Batman media. We know several people within the GCPD. We know the history of the
Mm-hmm.
GCPD. We know the history of Gotham and the relationship between the Arkhams and the Waynes and like all of this stuff.
Yep.
It's one of the most fully realized worlds in all of fiction. Even forget comic books, just
Mm-hmm.
all of fiction. And
For
so
sure.
I think with this show, because it is even more grounded than the Batman movie because Batman is the hero, and now we're going like even levels deeper. The small stuff that they did here, was really, I think, really valuable because we see the broken down iceberg lounge. We see the effects of the flooding that happened at the hands of the Riddler at the end of the Batman. We see the outside of strip clubs. We go into small apartment buildings and up the steps. Like,
Mhm.
we both live in New York and we know like what it looks like on the inside of some of these buildings. It's like, it's kind of
Yeah.
sketchy here, bro. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I feel
Yeah.
safe right now. Like all of that stuff that they lean into, while still keeping it heightened because Gotham is a place that is just like, it's almost uninhabitable. There's tons of memes and gifs out there about certain cities turning into Gotham when shit just goes crazy, and I think that like that's always beautifully realized when we can really lean into that, and I think that they did a pretty good job here at just reintroducing that world. But also another big thing here is the fact that this is taking place 1 week after the events of the Batman. So the flooding event that I just referenced, it is taking hold of the city. There's so much damage that's happening, but this is now the most opportune time for Oz, who we're sort of shortening his name for this show. Oz is basically going to take advantage of a broken down Gotham, a broken down underworld. We know that Alberto, who is the son of Falcone, who was killed in the first one, is looking to try to come in and revolutionize their drug operation. But now this is Oswald's time to strike and sort of take advantage of this weak moment. And what we see in the opening moments here is this conversation between him and Alberto. And once Oz gets to talking, Alberto mocks him, laughs at him. He's just like, that's silly. Like that your ideas, your plan, you wanting to become this respected mob boss, all of this stuff. You giving me this sappy story about your history and your background.
Mhm.
Screw all of that. I don't care. And he mocks him. And what I would say was a pretty shocking moment, Oswald just dispatches of him quickly, kills him off of just pure impulse. It's not premeditated whatsoever. He kills him for the simple fact that he's getting laughed at right here. What were your thoughts at seeing that? Because it just happened so quickly and so suddenly. And I think similar to what he realized in that moment, us as an audience is like, oh, you just really stepped in it. This is going to have some massive repercussions. You can't just get away from killing the
Mhm.
son of one of the most notorious mob bosses that have ever existed in Gotham.
Man, shout out to Michael Zegan for even just I know him mostly, of course, from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but I do know he's in Boardwalk Empire and some other things. But seeing him was like, oh man, this dude is good at talking shit. Like that's what his his characters in these shows. That's what they do. That's what they do. They're good at talking shit. So I loved his mannerisms, even in that scene. What's it, the first 5 minutes of the damn episode? Alberto is saying this, and Oz shoots him. Like you said, it was very shocking. But then after like 3 seconds went by, I was like, that's so Penguin. Like, because he hates being made fun of. So I just thought it made a ton of sense for what the character is. Because partially as a viewer, you're like, oh my god, you should not be laughing at this dude. Do not laugh at the Penguin. But when he does it, again, it is both shocking and very makes sense for the character. So I thought it was a crazy moment. I both seen it coming and didn't see it coming. It was just a very interesting wave of emotions going on at the time. But wow, what a way to start the episode. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, coming into this, I think it's automatic to think like, oh yeah, it's going to be a battle for power between these two. Like they'll
Mm-hmm.
be going back and forth, and then immediately he shoots him and kills him. And it's like, oh, well, the show's not going to be exactly what I thought it was going to be, but it does speak to the insecurities of Oz as a character. Where his deepest insecurities come from, and again,
Mm-hmm.
throughout various Batman media, it changes and morphs and evolves. Sometimes Penguin is like a literal sort of human manifestation of a penguin like human being, with penguin
Yeah.
mannerisms and characteristics. But again, because this is a grounded world, that's not what they're doing here. Like, yeah, he's a little rotund. He does
Mm-hmm.
have some, I guess,
A little waddle.
deformities. Yeah, a little
A
waddle,
little
but
waddle.
it's all based on actual physical disabilities to an extent. Like his
Mm-hmm.
his 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 limp that he has is just based on the fact that like his foot is all fucked up. It's just
So
completely,
bad.
it's terrible. And we get a shot of it. It's like, oh my god, that's that's irreparable damage there. So those are all
Mhm.
physical insecurities, but then also just the bigger insecurities about his placement in this organization and his ambitions to want to be respected and to want to be a big time player in Gotham, but nobody taking him seriously, largely probably because of his appearance, right? And so that all just comes to the surface, it comes to the forefront, and he kills him immediately. And now you're like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, this is even more of an interesting show because we're gonna have to see how he truly becomes a mastermind as well,
Yeah.
because he doesn't just develop that skill overnight. He's not really that clever. You know,
Mhm.
he's not that sharp when it comes to trying to figure out how to resolve this issue and really patch it up. Like he has to learn that and acquire that in order to
Mhm.
be at the top of the rankings within Gotham. And I think that that's what a lot of the series is going to be about, him having to think 10 steps ahead in order to truly be that mastermind, that criminal mastermind that we know him as. But also, another big key character here is Sophia Falcone, who was introduced in this episode. You know, there's a whole sequence where Oz goes back to the Falcone operation. He basically learns that, you know, they plan to assume control of his drug ring, but he has other ideas, and he starts just mouthing off about everything he wants to achieve, basically taking all of Alberto's ideas that he communicated to him earlier and claiming them as his own. And in the background, we get the arrival of Sophia Falcone, who is completely menacing, very, very scary, fresh out of Arkham Asylum, looks crazy, looks very formidable, and already suspects that something is up with Oz because her brother, Alberto, has disappeared. She's like, I was just talking to him last night. And now you're here, and now you're saying all the stuff that he told me last night. What's going on here? I don't trust you. She's obviously super smart and ahead of the curve. So, what did you think about just the introduction of this character and
Yeah.
ultimately what she's going to mean for the rest of the series as the foe to Oswald Cobblepot?
Shout out to casting. I was like, Michael Zegan and Kristen Milioti kind of look alike. I was like, this kind of makes sense actually. Y'all do kind of look like brother and sister. If they were to put them right next to each other, I would believe it. I'd be like, yeah, maybe they are brother and sister. But man, what an introduction of a character. In she's so scary because you have no idea the real reason why she was in Arkham. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
she just has like this presence about her that tell me I'm not crazy. And I'm all like, I don't know if I can say that and really believe myself because we don't know what you did and why you're there. But she's super menacing to me because she's so calm. That's what makes her so scary, I think. Like you said, she walks into the room and she's listening to Oz, and we're like, oh my God, do you see this figure behind you? We know who it is, but like, do you know who that is behind you? And there's something there of the mystery of, as she's doing this thing, as she goes to dinner with Oz, as she's doing all this, you're like, does she believe him that she doesn't know where his brother is? I don't know. Like, I can't really tell what she's giving off completely. I don't know if she believes him or doesn't believe him, or what she thinks. It's very scary when there's a villain and you don't know what they're thinking. That's the scariest stuff to me because you don't know what they're going to do. And again, that paired with why she's in Arkham Asylum beats the hell out of me. So I thought it was a very good introduction for a character. She has such a presence when she walks into rooms or just being around. Even the way she talks again is like, you are not all the way there, but also you do speak normally. I can't explain that, but that's Kristen Milioti just being able, I think, to play this character in such a good way. And again, having the history behind her with the rest of the Falcone family is like, there's something there. We just haven't exactly explored it all yet, but it made me very excited to see, I think, where that character is going to take us. Her being the villain of the show, the antagonist of the show, it interests me so much now after seeing how the way she plays it, and I think we're in for a treat with her performance for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it was a super strong introduction for this character. I mean, that's how you bring in somebody and instantly you make them intimidating. And it was super effective because we have to buy in as an audience that somebody could equal and exceed the cunning, the wit, the power of Oswald Cobblepot the Penguin. I mean, this is a character who has a ton of history already built in. Sophia, not as much as him, right? Sophia obviously is
Mm-hmm.
tied and adapted from the comics, but Oswald is obviously a lot more famous of a character. And so they did a terrific job at introducing her and automatically making her just completely unpredictable. And you just don't know where she's going to go. You don't know what she's thinking. You just can't really anticipate her next movements. And she has that Falcone blood in her. And it's like, well, they're all kind of in the shits, in the throes of this whole
Hmm.
criminal illegal operation. And knowing that she probably now knows that her brother is dead, which we do see at the end of the episode, she sees his body. That's just going to create just even more wrath, because she clearly now knows who's responsible. So it was a great way to introduce his character and to set her up as this big bad antagonist for Oswald Cobblepot. I do want to quickly talk about the character Victor. When Oz is trying to dispose of Alberto's body after he kills him, he runs into a bunch of kids who are trying to break into his car. And Victor is one that he's able to kidnap essentially and basically make him do his bidding. But one thing I didn't anticipate coming into the show is the fact that Oswald was going to have sort of a right hand man, a young kid
Hmm.
to help him, sort of overcome this Falcone crime organization. And Victor automatically, sort of proves his worth and proves his loyalty, even though it's out of, I think, a lot of self-preservation. He doesn't want Oz to
Facts.
kill him, but it does appear that this is going to be a pretty strong relationship that maintains over the course of the episode, or over the course of the series, excuse me. So what did you think about just that usage of that character, how he is very much tied in and being this young pupil, who is working right alongside Oswald Cobblepot and probably has big things in store for him ahead as he continues to work alongside him?
Man, I keep talking about the casting, but I really love the casting in the show. Shout out to Renzi Feliz, man, who was our Alex Wilder from Runaways for a very long time, like 3 whole seasons, which is crazy. But it's such an interesting. This is one of the things that makes Oz interesting, right? Because again, we are watching this crime boss, this person who probably usually does no good, anything like that. He finds his kid, again, trying to steal his car, stops him, and realizes he has a speech impediment and he stutters. And now all of a sudden, because he also has a disability, he somewhat sympathizes with this kid and is like, low key, I'm gonna make you do some things for me. And in the whole time, as you're watching it, you're afraid for Victor because you're like, you might die at any moment. You might die. Even when they get to almost the end of disposing the body, and Oz is like, all right, I have to do this, and I'm like, wow, he really might die here. Like this might be the end of him. It was interesting, interesting play, I think, from beginning to end for that character. Like you said, I could not have seen him having a right hand man, a young wingman underneath him. I could not have seen that a million miles away, that being part of this show. But I think it's genius. Again, it's adding a human component to who Penguin is. Same thing with them adding his mom in here. And like, it's like, whoa, no, he's not just a crime boss and this evil dude and he only wants self glorification, for himself. There's more to him. He does have a new young henchman. He does have a mother who he actually cares about, who probably steers him in the craziest directions you can imagine. But there are human things to him, and I think Victor is such a good mirror for him as the show progresses. We're gonna be like, yeah, but Victor, you know what I mean? We're gonna be like, oh my god, Penguin is terrible, but Victor, So I think it's a really cool character to introduce.
Yeah, I think this was kind of the thing that revealed to me, once he didn't kill him, and once he sort of took him by his side, and this was going to be sort of, I guess, a reoccurring character. This is where I realized, like, oh yeah, he's building, I guess, his roster of people around him very much, like what we see with Tony Soprano. Tony Soprano
Mm-hmm.
he has
Them
Chris,
couples.
he has Christopher, as sort of
Yeah.
his pupil. He has his mother who's always in his ear, who's always, chastising him and, ultimately arranges to kill him. Like, all of these things become extensions of who the
Mm-hmm.
Tony Soprano character is. And that's what they're doing here. It's a clear homage and a nod to that. And so once that became like a reality, I was like, oh, okay, I appreciate that, because it does do more to humanize the character and to just add more levels and dimensions to him, and gives him a reason, I think, to also just be a little bit more aware and cognizant of his path to, I guess, this glory that he's trying to achieve, and to be this criminal underlord, but also just like the sacrifices that are going to come with that. Because the more people you have gravitate towards you, the more connections that you build, it becomes even more difficult to maintain all of that, because now you're opening
Mm-hmm.
yourself up to be vulnerable. Like, if somebody were to kidnap Victor later down the line and they have this really strong relationship with each other, let's say Victor gets kidnapped and he's used as leverage to weaken Oswald. That's a weakness for him. And what's that going to do for him? Is he gonna just let Victor die and sacrifice him in that way? That might be a conflict that we have to see come down the line, because we don't historically know Victor to be alongside the Penguin in any other
Right.
media. So this is kind of an original
Mhm.
creation, for this show, and really this entire story is going to be something that's entirely different from anything that we've seen. And so I'm curious to see how that continues to evolve and develop. But as we wrap up here, any last thoughts, hopes, and expectations for this Penguin series? I do believe that this is intended to be a limited series. That's what it's marketed as. That doesn't mean much in this day and age. Limited series turn into reoccurring series all the time now, but they are saying that this is just going to be an 8 episode run and then they're going to be done.
Mhm.
Colin Farrell is also kind of talking about the fact that he's very much tired of putting that makeup on and that suit on, which I can imagine. It's a ton of prosthetics. But what are your just hopes and expectations as we move forward over the course of the next several weeks with the show The Penguin?
You talked about them, Gotham, and them using different locations. I think I'm excited to potentially explore some of those locations that we could use in a more intimate setting, like a TV show. I love to see more, maybe sidelines at Arkham, or different, just places that exist within the Gotham world, and maybe see what comes out of that. Maybe see how Sophia uses that for her own personal gain. Maybe how Oz himself uses it, the city and these different places, for her own personal gain. I remember the little preview show, like another water levee breaking or something. I'm like, yeah, give us those crazy city Gotham moments. So of course the story is going to be the story. Sophia versus Oz is the thing that's going, but I'm hoping to see some of those really cool, I think, Gotham moments come to the light. And then last thing I'll say, I hope they keep this show violent, because that first episode was crazy. They cutting off, we shooting people, we trying to lacerate arms, we cutting off fingers, and bodies are in trunks. It's like, this is 1 hour. I can't even imagine what the other 7 episodes are going to hold. So I'm just hoping all that stuff remains throughout the rest of the series.
No doubt. I would just add, I'm just really excited to see the rest of this cast. We did get hints at, his mother. We saw Clancy Brown, Salvatore Maroni. Love seeing
Yeah.
him here. Carmen Ejogo is playing sort of
Hmm.
this love interest mistress to Oz. Can't wait to see more of her. They have a really, really great cast here. And so it's really
Fire.
exciting to see this talent be a part of this show and how they're going to sort of interact and revolve around Oswald as we continue to see him rise and take the ranks. But yeah, more of the Gotham stuff, obviously, and hopefully some good lead in for the sequel film that we're going to get in a couple of years here. Again, I'm not expecting the world. I'm not expecting Robert Pattinson to show up. They've confirmed that he won't be in this show, which could be a misdirection, but I actually believe him. I believe that they won't have him
I
in the
believe it.
show, but I think that's some good lead in to continue to shape up the character of Oswald, to see how he might influence the events of the second Batman film. Are obviously going to be expectations on the table by the end of it. So lots to look forward to over the next few weeks. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the brand new HBO and Max series, The Penguin. If you've checked out this premiere episode, hit us up and let us know what you think.